the more details that emerge about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's relationship with billionaire conservative activist Harlan Crow, the more this looks like the biggest scandal the court has seen in generations. It may even be the biggest since 1969, when Supreme Court Justice Abe Fortas was forced to resign after his financial dealings with a wealthy donor came to light. So let's just run through what we know about Clarence Thomas and his friend Harlan Crow so far, because just the details themselves are damning. So last week, ProPublica, incredible reporting, broke the story about the lavish gifts Thomas has received from his billionaire buddy. For 20 years, Thomas has been joining Crow on vacations worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. He has flown on Crow's private plane, cruised around the globe on his 162-foot super yacht, and made annual trips to his private resort in the Adirondack Mountains. Crow even commissioned this just breathtakingly beautiful painting, memorializing their time at the resort, smoking cigars alongside conservative lawyers. There's Leonard Leo right there, the guy that runs the Federalist Society. And that's Crow on the far right, seated next to Thomas. Now, crucially, and this is really, really key, Thomas never reported any of this at all on his financial disclosure forms. That appears to be a clear violation of a law passed after the Watergate scandal that requires justices to disclose most gifts. Now, in the wake of that bombshell ProPublica report, Justice Thomas released a damningly weak and weaselly statement claiming that early in his tenure on the court, quote, he was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable. Now, I think that excuse really doesn't pass muster. First of all, as the LA Times reported nearly 2 decades ago, Thomas used to disclose gifts from Harlan Crow. For example, on his 2001 disclosure, he reported that Crow gave him a $19,000 Bible that once belonged to Frederick Douglass. That is a very cool gift, by the way. But after that story ran, mysteriously, Thomas stopped disclosing gifts from Crow. So it sure seems like maybe he didn't want people to know that he was receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gifts from a billionaire conservative activist. The other key point, and I truly, truly cannot emphasize this enough, is that Clarence Thomas's whole job is to use his judgment to make judgment calls while judging. He sits on the highest court in the land where he judges others, and he makes rulings on what the best thing to do is when the text or the law is unclear, ambiguous, or even absent. It is an unbelievable confession of complete judicial bankruptcy to say, well, you know, asked a few people, I didn't think I needed to let anyone know I was island hopping with a billionaire. Now, we have seen calls from Democratic lawmakers and ethics groups for Clarence Thomas to be investigated or even to resign or in some cases to be impeached. And, you know, even if those set of revelations about Harlan Crow's lavish generosity towards a justice unreported, if that was the end of it, if it stopped there, that would be bad enough. But now there's this new development in the story, and it makes it all even worse. ProPublica has discovered that Harlan Crow purchased property from Clarence Thomas and his family, and Thomas never disclosed that transaction. In 2014, Crow purchased 3 properties in Savannah, Georgia, a 2-bedroom home and 2 vacant lots. The total purchase price was over $133,000. The sellers were Justice Clarence Thomas, his elderly mother, and the family of his late brother. Now, the justice signed the paperwork himself. That is his signature on the warranty deed. So this was not done through some proxy. That's Clarence Thomas's signing the deed. After the sale, Crow hired a renowned architecture firm to carry out tens of thousands of dollars worth of improvements on that single-story home. They added a carport, a new fence and gates, repaired the roof. Justice Thomas's mother, Leola Williams, is now 94 years old, and she's still living in that home today, which is, to her great benefit, and I'm glad for her, a much improved house. Harlan Crow claims that he purchased the house where Thomas lived as a child so that he could, quote, one day create a public museum telling the story of our nation's second black Supreme Court justice. Now, he didn't explain why he also purchased the 2 vacant lots down the street, but revealed they were later sold to a vetted builder who was committed to improving the quality of the neighborhood and preserving its historical integrity, which, okay, I mean, if you want to do that with your money. Again, all this sounds like nice enough if you're on the receiving end of it. And maybe it's motivated entirely nobly by Harlan Crow. I don't know. I can't read his mind. But let's just walk through all the ways that this is completely ethically unacceptable. First of all, it's not clear if Harlan Crow paid fair market value for these properties. In his financial disclosures as late as 2009, Clarence Thomas valued his one-third stake in the properties at just $15,000, which would put the total value of those properties, times 3, at $45,000. $45,000 is quite a bit less than the $133,000 that Crow paid 5 years later. Maybe that real estate in Savannah went up a ton during those 5 years. I don't know. But obviously, overpaying for a piece of property is a notorious, tried and true way of disguising a bribe or a corrupt gift. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but the point is the possibility of using a real estate transaction for that kind of disguised bribe is precisely the reason that you must report real estate sales on financial disclosures. Now, another question. We don't know. I mean, I suspect she is, but I don't know if Clarence Thomas's mother is paying rent. And God, you don't really want to drag this 94-year-old woman into this, but Harlan Crow already kind of did that. But Harlan Crow's her landlord, so does she pay him rent every month? And if she is, let's be clear about what exactly happened here. The billionaire patron of Justice Clarence Thomas purchased his elderly mother's house, which is a really important place, I would imagine, in the Thomas's life, right? Taking over all the upkeep and the maintenance and the property taxes and the carrying costs, and invested tens of thousands of dollars in making it nicer, improving it. Now, again, that's great for Clarence Thomas's mom, but it is plainly and obviously an enormous gift to Clarence Thomas and his family. Obviously. Everyone knows that. Justice Thomas knows that. He's even indicated in public that his relationship with Harlan Crow is valuable. I want you to listen to this really, really telling moment from an interview with torture memo author John Yoo last year.
I want to thank you for joining us this evening. And I think, I'm sure you and all of us want to join thank Harlan Crow and his family for making this wonderful facility available to us. I know Harlan hates that.
No,
so I knew we had
that's
to.
Why I wouldn't say it.
I knew we had to do it.
I like to keep that friendship.
I'm sure he would like to keep that friendship. And again, Harlan Crow is not just some disinterested friend, though by all accounts, the two men are genuine friends, right? They're buddies. Fine. Yes, absolutely. Stipulated. But this is a man who has oriented much of his public life and his fortune around the project of remaking the country along his conservative ideology. I mean, just imagine an imaginary version of this on the other side. Let's say we found out this week that Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor spent weeks island hopping on liberal billionaire George Soros' yacht. Imagine if Sonia Sotomayor spent every summer hanging out at a property owned by Soros, or if Soros bought a house owned by Sotomayor's elderly relative and fixed it up. If George Soros was Sotomayor's mom's landlord. Would anyone? I mean, first of all, the right would lose its mind. But would anyone, even left, right, whatever, suggest, oh, that's fine, nothing to see here, they didn't report it? Of course not. The situation is unacceptable on its face. Now, we're left with two big questions. What, if any, consequences will Clarence Thomas face? And do we actually know the whole story here about his relationship with Harlan Crow? Or could there be even more shoes to drop? Jesse Eisinger is a senior editor at ProPublica, which broke both of these stories about Clarence Thomas. Noah Bookbinder, president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Now, that group just filed a civil and criminal complaint against Thomas, calling on the Department of Justice and the Supreme Court to investigate the justice. Jesse, let me just start with you on what to me is a really notable point here, which is that after this story, the first story being published, Thomas issues a statement. It's rare that he does that, but he does, as does Harlan Crow. After the second story is published, Harlan Crow issues a statement saying this was all my plan to build this museum, which again, maybe that's true. I don't know. Thomas has said nothing so far. Am I right about that, or have I missed some sort of response?
No, that's absolutely right. Thanks for having me on. Again, happy to be here. It's really remarkable that Thomas First, that he responded to the story. Now, he didn't respond to the first story when we reached out for comment. And let me be clear that when we reach out for comment, we run everything by the subject of the story, an extensive list of questions that my reporters produced, because we're a no surprises journalism outfit. So everything that we're going to write about a subject, we try to seek comment extensive and give them fair and adequate time to respond to. No response to the first story, but then he was pressured by the response to that story to issue the statement that you referred to. In the second time, we did the exact same thing. We went to them, we gave them adequate notice. We went to Crow. Crow asked for a little bit more time. We gave them more time to go through the records. Then Crow responded, and it was absolute silence from Thomas himself, which is really stunning that he doesn't feel like he owes the public any response at all to this.
Noah, let's say that all of this at the level of the gifts and the financial transactions is kosher and not corrupting. I'm a little skeptical of that being the case, but let's say. On the matter of the law and disclosure, what does the law say about whether you have to tell people that your billionaire buddy has bought your mom's house?
And the law is absolutely clear on this. There is these financial disclosure forms. They're not actually that long and complicated. I was a federal employee for a lot of years. I filled out a lot of them. And, there is a place where you need to list if you have engaged in real estate transactions. And you don't have to report about buying and selling your own house. Because it's sort of assumed that everybody's going to do that. But what's interesting is Clarence Thomas declared these properties repeatedly on his financial disclosures as rental properties that he was making income for. So he knew these were rental properties. Rental properties, it's crystal clear that you got to declare. Ownership of properties that are not your house. If you sell that, you get money in. You have to declare that. Those properties kind of magically just disappear from his financial disclosures without any mention of this money he got from this person who, lo and behold, happens to be the same person who is paying for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of lavish vacations for him. It is, with the vacation, that's, we think, pretty clear that he had an obligation to disclose there too. It's quite clear. But there are sort of arguments you could kind of make around the margins. There are no arguments on the real estate transactions, and it's just impossible to comprehend.